Hi, boa tarde. I'm Marieleen Bruggeman, and I was born in Flanders, in Belgium. I'm 65 years old now, and I'm reformada, so I am enjoying the part of my life after being a teacher for a very long time. But I'm going to be very short on my past to go to how I see my future in Coimbra. So first of all, I told you that I was a teacher. I teach like Dutch language to adults in Brussels and in Paris. That was a very good experience, of course, because we had like an international community in the classes. Then during the holidays, I was touring tourists around in the cities, in Paris and Madrid, and often not only walking tours, but also on the bike. So here in Coimbra, I love to bike as well in a safe environment, but I come back to that point later on. I live in Coimbra for about 3 years now, and actually, when I arrived at first, when I was looking to Coimbra from the Santa Clara side towards the city on the hillside, it felt like coming home. I cannot explain in one way, but it just felt so good. And after 3 years, I can tell you that I feel like being home. I experience the city in a very positive way. It is a safe environment, and mostly people have a very open mind, a very open spirit towards foreigners. I'm a foreigner, a migrant. And of course, I know that my situation as a reformada is kind of a privileged situation because the Belgian government is paying me a pension so I can have a good life, although I must tell you that everything you buy in the shop is more expensive than in Belgium. Only the restaurants can offer you like a prato do dia for less money, but otherwise, life is very expensive. And so sometimes I feel like connected to the Portuguese people, often with less poor money to buy food every month. So I think sometimes a lot of people are in danger. I must confess that my move to Coimbra, plan that I planned during the strict COVID restrictions, I'm sorry, it's a very difficult word. Dutch is my mother tongue. It was not really the start that I imagined. Let me say that when I arrived here in Coimbra, the cities were abandoned. The historical city was like a ruin. The restaurants were closed, the cafes were closed, people were wearing masks on buses and in the shops, and it felt creepy. It was like I am walking in the streets and I'm alone. I'm the only one here. But there was another problem, that I had to learn to understand what Portuguese people were telling me, and they had a mask, and sometimes the pronunciation was not a Spanish style. I mean, it was not very clear the way my ear was trained for the language. So it was very difficult, and I must confess that I'm getting older and it's more difficult to learn a new language. Of course, Portuguese is a very different and very difficult to language. On top of that, we are in Europe, but on many levels, it doesn't feel like Europe. We had a lot of administration and paperwork to do, and that was frustrating because we had like a lot of papers. Some things went on the computer, but mostly we had a paper for everything. But we managed, and because we are flexible, we have the life abroad, we were experienced in having a culture shock. But that's just for fun, I say that, because the shock was not. It was not a shock. It was a soft landing. It was different, but not a shock. So at first we went to the Escola Jaime Cortesão for Portuguese for foreigners, for immigrants. And the two teachers that we had, like Alda and Elsa, those ladies were so sweet. They could handle the classroom. And I can tell you, mostly the men coming from India, Pakistan, and all other countries with a different culture against women, they could deal with that. They were there, and there were women with power, and those guys always try to come late. and leave the classes early, but the teachers continue motivating us. And sometimes we felt so sorry for them because we are not used to this kind of education. But, you know, they wanted to have a permit, a resident permit to stay here. So they had to come to class to have a basic language knowledge. They stayed friendly and helpful in any way. So we have warm feelings against these women. Then afterwards, like 2.5 years ago, I discovered the ladies group of Sakada Baisha by coincidence, because you had to walk in the streets of the Baisha and then you look everywhere in detail. Look, here is some activity. Maybe I have to meet these ladies. And the Meninas from the Sakada Baisha became my new family, my social backup. We were sharing life and joy experiences, and sometimes the ladies came with clothes and veggies for me, but mostly the warm hugs that we give each other when we meet, when we come and enter the atelier, when we go. It's just, I felt so warm inside because these women are looking at me like unconditional. I'm not used to that, because I think in the northern countries, everybody is suspicious. What is this person coming from? What is she going to do? But here, you're welcomed and they hug you like all the others. So it was a very big difference. So we could share a lot of creative and expressive experiences, because I had already a lot of creativity in my head, but during the time that I had a job and a child to raise, I didn't have time to develop that. But now I could go for full development of my creativity, because I have always been convinced that an active life when you're getting older is good for the body and the brain. So not only Sakada Baisha, I do Pilates here, I go to Zumba class, I do padel, like the tennis in the Chupal, and I play the guitar now. So all my days are filled. Sometimes too much, but okay. I had a very nice meeting with the guy Rui, who is my music teacher. And although at first I thought it will take a lot of time, I don't have really a goal. I just flow. I learn. Some weeks are slowly learning. Some weeks I can. Now I'm practicing on the Coimbra, the Balada de Despedida. And it's not done yet, but in a few weeks I can play it for you if you want. Then I met another man. He was like the teacher of aquarelle. He teach me the techniques, and now I'm active painter of aquarelle. I make a lot of aquarelles, and I make like cards to send to people. So it's very, very nice to have my days filled with these things of activities. And of course, for the community of the Dutch-speaking society in Holland and in Flanders. Every month, I'm writing a blog about my life for the history, the monuments, the places to visit, and my personal experiences here in Coimbra. So that's my part that I do for Coimbra, putting it on the map. Because mostly when I talk to people, they say, Coimbra, it's just one day worth a visit. I said, what? I'm here like 3 years now, and still I'm amazed by, have you seen this? Have you seen that? I can still fill my days by walking around and see things that I never saw before. So that's my input for Coimbra. But as they say, there are two sides to a coin, and now I'm going to tell you the few points that are frustrating me here in Coimbra and what we could do about it. Not we, but the government. And one of them are the cobblestones. I just told Philippa that I fell down already twice. And it was because the holes in the street, and I know you cannot continuously repair them, but the holes sometimes make it impossible, like walking, looking up, and continue to walk. No, you're on the floor. So maybe it's good to be aware that for a lot of older people here, and I don't count myself as old, but say me, that it's really a danger, because once you need like physiotherapy and you go to the Saúde, they tell you that you have a waiting time for 2 months before you can have a treatment. And I'm sorry, it's not after 2 months that they are going to cure your knee when you fell down. So that's something. Why is Portugal not taking care of its people more than the way it is now? We are here in Coimbra, the best hospital, but treatments are like, you have to go to the privates, Saúde, and I don't want that. We have the right to be cured and to be helped because we pay for it. So, okay, that's one point. And then, here in the Baixa, this morning, there were 2 Dutch people walking around, tourists. I guide them around and I show them the things that are not in the tourist books, in the guides, because they can have the book and walk around by themselves. I try to confrontate them with other things. And so one of the things that breaks my heart is to see all the shops abundant in the Baixa. And when I asked, how much is it for having this? Because you never know that I find friends to do something. And they ask like prices that you cannot pay when you're a starter, when you want to do business as a starter. 400 every month. How can you have 400 when you start a business? So for me, it would be good for the camera to say, if you are not able to find a renter, it's because the price is too high. And if you don't lower the price so that people take the room, then you have to be punished. Pay some money to the town. That's my solution. Okay, but I'm enjoying people in the streets, in the Baixa, saying hello, they recognize you. The shop vendors, they have time to talk to you. And the coffee, you can have a coffee and sit on the shady terrace for half an hour when the coffee is already finished for 25 minutes. So that's no problem. After a day in the Baixa, I'm tired, and there is a good system of public transport. I must tell you, you never know when the bus comes, but the bus will come, and the bus will take you home for a good price. So, mostly I go with the meninas to typical Portuguese dishes, but in the evening, sometimes I go for the Belgian traditional dishes, like tomato soup with meatballs. And I know I served it once to the Portuguese. They don't like it. They have good tomatoes here, but they don't use it for the soup. Then, another point that could be improved is the parking behavior of the car drivers. They park wherever they think they have to be. So they don't have any respect for pedestrians or bikers. So I think if the police of Coimbra would give them a fine when they park where it's not allowed, it could bring a lot of extra money to the camera that they can put in other projects that are more positive. So, camera, please let the police walk around, not standing and waiting there in front of the manga and doing nothing. Okay, the past cannot be ignored. I know that. And the things that I see, they can be improved. But the question that I ask myself from time to time is, how can I be a caring citizen here? How can I integrate more and participate in the society and taking responsibility in making the city a city for the future? And so when the language, that's a big challenge, is improved, I think that we here in Portugal have to be aware that when you teach young children from the age of 6 another language, that it will be more easier to become bi and multilingual. So why do they wait so long? Okay, it's not only in Portugal, they do it everywhere. But the best time to start is when they are young. They are like a sponge. Let's start with that. Give our children a really European spirit, because when you have the language, the culture comes with the language. I'm sure those two are together. Then I feel very safe at night, walking on the streets. No fear. I hope this will stay like this. Yeah. Then, to end my wish list, I have a wish list. Often I bike around the Mondego in the Mata de Chupa. And if the streets along the river could be prolonged until Figueira da Foz, I would bike to Figueira da Foz and stay overnight, and the next day with my bike. And I will tell you something that I'm sure that the Portuguese don't know. The government of Portugal last year gave financial support to people buying a bike with electric assistance. So what I did, I bought a bike. I had already one, but I bought a new one and I gave mine to somebody else. So for each bike you buy, 500 euros of motivation money. That's what I call it. And so I hope that the future is more and more to the bikers. I think let us continue to love and care for Coimbra and his people. Let us be critical, but in a positive and constructed way, so we can make the best of our life in this beautiful city.